I entered into my first relationship when I was 17 years old. It ended up lasting about 4 years. I had no idea what I was doing or anything else to even compare what that relationship should look like, but that's part of being a teenager. Honestly, I don't know where I got the balls to come out when I was 16, but I did. I'm glad I did, though, so I could make a lot of mistakes early on, which I obviously did. When I first moved to Toronto, I ended up dating a lot, most relationships only lasting a month or two at the most. When I look back at who I was when I was in my early 20s, I kind of cringe to think who would want to date me. That's just because I was such a mess. I eventually did find a partner when I was 25 who loved me in the way that I needed. He supported me to be healthier when I was in an excess of drinking and partying by helping me with therapy and just being there for me. I had never been in a relationship where I felt like I could grow as a person because I had that much support. It changed how I felt about myself and also how I wanted to be treated. I've had my heart broken so many times I would have to really think to count them. Some seem like they happened to a different person, someone that I don't even recognize. Some are so fresh that the effects of that person are still here in my life. I could go back to all these relationships and find some way that it changed me. I learn the most about myself from the people that come into my life. I know that romanticizing friendships is just as important. I want my friends to know me on a deeper level, and I want to know them the same way. I used to feel that I needed that intimacy from one partner, and now I know I need it from a community of people. In this episode, I chat with Tom Brewitt, a sex and relationship therapist, and we chat about the need for romantic intimacy and the importance of community alongside. This is Mask Off for Mask, and I'm Vance. Hey, Tom. How's it going?
Hey, good. Nice to see you, Vance.
Yeah, nice to finally get to talk to you. I think we've just followed each other online for the last, I don't know how long it's been, but I've been following you for a while anyways.
Me too. I've been following you too.
Well, why don't you start by telling me a little bit about your therapy work and working with gay men and what's that like?
Sure, yeah. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sex therapist here in the United States. And I've been working with gay men since I started my work professionally about 12 years ago. I worked at a community mental health clinic in the Castro in San Francisco, and I was, really passionate about working with gay men and worked with lots of different types of gay men and different issues. And I've really found that I love working with gay couples. And so most of my focus over the last several years has been working with gay couples and gay relationships in one way or another.
Mm-hmm. What was it that made you want to start working with gay men? Was that always the plan before you became a therapist?
Not really. I mean, obviously I'm gay myself. And so I think when I worked at this queer community mental health clinic, just, the issues that I was dealing with, I was also seeing in the people that I was working with. And so it felt like kind of a nice, dialogue that we were able to have. And certainly, if you're a gay man, you don't have to see a gay male therapist. But I do think that there's something about like working with another gay man, whether in coaching or in therapy, where, we just kind of get the vernacular. And there's tons of different types of gay men out there. But, I think at least having some of that overlap as a place to start is, I think, a good building block or a good place to start when you're building trust with somebody you're working with in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how originally how I got into this work was that I tried sex work for a month, tried escorting because I was I thought I'd be good at it. I love sex and I'm a very sexual person. And I could only handle it for a month because I was like, this is too much anxiety. I just don't know what, I just don't know what I'm going to expect when I have a client. But the only thing that I saw that I was like, most of these men that I did in the month talk to or even meet up with weren't actually even looking for sex. Barely sex was involved. It was like they just wanted to be with someone and to spend time with someone. And I was like, wow, there is a lot of lonely gay men out there. And for myself too, experiencing that, right? So I was like, this work is needed.
It's very needed. And I think like you said, I mean, right now with apps, right, you can go on Sniffies or Grindr or whatever, and you can find sex probably in 10 or 15 minutes, depending on where you live in the world. But sex does not necessarily, as you know, kind of connects to intimacy or connection. And I think so many of us are just craving to be known and to be able to have that kind of vulnerability and intimacy with another man. And many of us didn't have that growing up. And, I think it's rare. I think people are, I'm hoping that the work that all of us are doing is helping this become more possible for people, but there's still a lot of people out there who are lonely.
Yeah. Do you think that there's just like an awareness or like I guess lack of awareness of just like social skills of actually how to have friendships and romantic relationships. Like one of the things that I find too when I work with guys is that like I'm a somatic practitioner, so it's like very trauma informed, and it's like a lot about like gaining the self awareness of what is my issues with relationships and how does that come up and taking responsibility, da da da, and oh that this like sometimes when guys come to me, it's like there's a huge part of the fantasy of what they think a romantic relationship should be like or what friendship should be like that is just like I find I spend a lot of time just like debunking the fantasy of what a relationship should look like because I think so many guys want that the one or the soulmate or whatever, all this kind of ideas of, but then there's below the surface, it's like trauma is dictating the people that you're choosing. So you're kind of in this loop of not even being aware of what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to be said about what you just described. Because if we think about the relationship escalator, most of us are sold this bill of goods that like you're going to meet somebody, you're going to date, you're going to get married, you're going to have kids, you're going to move to the suburbs, have a white picket fence and all that. That's like the heteronormative relationship escalator that even if we're gay or queer, we grow up thinking that that's the right way to be in relationship, right? And for many of us, that doesn't work. We know 50% of the time in the straight relationship world. And it certainly, I don't think, works a lot of the time in the gay relationship world. And if you're socialized male in most cultures, like you're not taught how to be intimate and vulnerable with other people. We rely on a lot of like female identified people to be carrying a lot of like the emotional labor in relationships and traditional heterosexual relationships. When you get two guys together, then it's like, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to figure this out? And, many of us were taught like, okay, you can't have feelings except anger, right? And you've got boys don't cry and all that kind of bullshit. And that's just not the way that humans interact. And so we have all these self-protections and walls, and it makes it really difficult to be in relationship, I think.
Well, actually, so that'll lead me to asking you about, so you're with someone now, I know. Are you married right now or?
We're not married. We've been together about 8.5 years, but not married.
But you were married before.
I was married before.
And how old were you when you got married?
Gosh, how old was I when I got married? That's a great question. I think I had just turned 30. I had just turned 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you can remember, or if you know what you were thinking when you got married, then what was the intention of why you wanted to be married? What was that from your family feeling like you had to do that or go that heteronormative way or whatever?
I think, it was I had been together with this person for a number of years before we got married, and it was right around marriage equality in the United States. And so there was a lot of sort of passion behind that. And I do think, I do certainly believe in marriage as a right for people who want to do that. But it is, marriage has a lot of issues with it, right? And so we have to think about so many times we get into a relationship and we have all these assumptions about what the relationship structure should look like, and we don't actually have those direct conversations. So, I mean, I have conversations all the time with people where I'm like, okay, you're in a monogamous relationship. Great. What does that mean? Does that mean you can send, DMs to hot guys on Instagram or not, or send nude pictures, or like, what does your monogamy actually look like? And so many times we don't actually have those kind of conversations. I think I got off track though with your question. Can you remind me or bring me back?
Before you get back onto your marriage, what you just said about like I think even the reason of like why you're getting married or monogamous, even you could say like I want to be monogamous. What does that mean? That means you can't have sex with someone or whatever the contract is with that. But then also like understanding like why do I need to be monogamous? Like for me in this work, I talk to guys a lot about if you need to be monogamous, it might be that you have like a lot of abandonment issues, so it's like way too triggering for your nervous system for people to be your partner to be out with other people. But if you can also understand and be like, okay, I can't just be like, well, this is so triggering for me that you have to make sure that you do nothing to make me uncomfortable. So that's why I need to be monogamous. You have to at least be like, well, if this person says, I can't do that in exactly the way you want to do, then there has to be some responsibility in being like, okay, there is a bit of like I have to be a bit more flexible on this or decide not to be in the relationship, right? So knowing the why of like, why do I want to be monogamous? Why am I getting married? If I feel like I'm getting married, do I feel like I'm locking in that person and I feel more safe mentally? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, this is a third rail topic for most gay couples or gay people in general. Like this is I think one of the most polarizing topics when I'm talking to other gay men. There's like a probably 50% of people who are 100% monogamy is the only way, the best way. 50% of people who want some form of non-monogamy. And I think the question that you're asking is so important because so many people aren't able to actually articulate why it's important to them. Sometimes it is a cultural belief or a religious belief, or, sometimes it is trauma based. But like, if you don't really get clear for yourself about why you want this structure, then it's very difficult to negotiate or to actually be in relationship with somebody who may want something different. And, we know the stats are about 50%. 50% of gay men want monogamy. 50% of gay men want some form of non-monogamy. So if you're going to meet a partner out there, there's, a 1 in 2 chance that you're going to meet somebody who wants a different relationship structure than you. And are you just going to wipe the whole relationship off the table because you can't decide on this one thing? Maybe, but I think it's worth a conversation.
Yeah, totally. I always say to guys that like have the conversation before you even before there's even a, hey, I met this guy and I want to open the relationship, or just have that conversation of like, how do you feel about that? Like I always say to, I'm not with anyone right now and I'm consciously not dating anyone for a year, but when I do, I have to say, like, I have to be open. Like, my work is really sexual with guys, too. So, like, I have to be open. And I just bring that up before there's, like, an incident happens or something that I want to do. That just be like, hey, how does that make you feel before anything happens? To see if, like, does that even trigger you, just the idea of that happening? And then maybe the conversation has to go deeper. But I always try to be, like, clear. Well, even right now, I'm trying to be clear with guys to say, I don't want a relationship. I want to have intimacy with you, but like at most it's a friendship with maybe we're sexual, and it's totally okay for you to bow out of this whenever you want, but this is not going to lead to anything. And I just try to be really clear with what people are entering into.
I think that's so important. I mean, so many times we aren't clear about what we want from a relationship, and we have these fantasies that like it's going to magically turn out the way that we hope it will in a fairy tale kind of way. And I mean, in my current relationship, we've been open since the beginning. I am not good at monogamy. I don't like it. It doesn't work for me. I'm not going to be in a monogamous relationship at this point in my life. I've tried that and I have failed. And instead of thinking I failed and there's something wrong with me, I think it's just okay to say, yeah, this is just not how I'm wired. It's not what I like. That's okay.
Can I ask you, when you were saying like you failed at monogamy or whatever in past relationships, like what did that look like for you? And like, how did it make you feel? Did it make you like feel like you were failing or at a relationship?
Oh, I mean, I can count the number of long-term boyfriends I've had where I had to have the conversation. Hey, so one example, before I became a therapist, I was an actor and I worked in theater. And so I was on a national tour and I ended up kind of falling for one of the people who was in the company, and I had a boyfriend back home in New York, and I had to have that conversation. Okay, sorry, this happened, and it was at a time, this was before PrEP, and so I think open relationships there was a lot more shame and stigma around them back then because we have the whole history of the HIV and AIDS epidemic. We're recording this today on World AIDS Day, so I think it's kind of applicable to talk about this. But there is this history of openness did at one point potentially mean death or risk. And so there is that in gay and queer male culture that we have to just accept and be aware of, even though a lot of this, there are ways to be safe, to have safe sex that doesn't involve condoms and, other things today. But there's this history that we all carry with us.
Yeah, like I remember when I was younger, because like what I recognize about myself too is that non-monogamy works for me too. And now I'm even thinking like, maybe committed relationship of any kind doesn't really work for me. But I remember when I was younger and I would like cheat on my boyfriend or whatever, I would feel so bad. I'd be like, I can't believe I cheated. That's like the worst thing ever. Like when I was in my early 20s and stuff. But even when I was in my mid 20s, I was in a long-term relationship where I loved my partner. I met a guy at one point and I really liked him. And it was also, I had been newly sober. And so I think there was a bit of a psychological trauma bonding with him because he was sober as well. And I was like, oh my God, this person I can be sober around that understands me. And so I was really conflicted, but I still loved my partner. And I think I never left my partner for him, and it ended up just not working out. But looking back on it now, I think I'm just a person that maybe needs and has the capacity to love more than one guy. And that's nothing to be shameful about. You just have to be aware and make sure you're clear with people. And so it was a learning process. Because before, too, in those relationships, I couldn't handle non-monogamy. Like I was sleeping with other people, but if my boyfriend had slept with someone else, I would have been like, oh my God, what did you do? This is like, would feel so intense about it, right? So like I had to learn how to be like, what structure works for me?
Well, we are programmed from the beginning of most of our like conscious minds that monogamy, that it's assumed monogamy unless, spoken about otherwise. And I think that's a real disservice to many relationships because you should iron out and have these conversations. And, like you said, I felt so much shame and like, oh God, am I a slut? Am I this? Am I that? Because I just really like sex. I have a high sex drive. And there's nothing wrong with that. And, it was actually in the process of becoming a sex therapist where you have to do all this training. I mean, it's actually was more training in some ways than my initial master's degree, and just like learning so much about sex and sexuality and shame. And, there's so much that we just have in our bodies that we don't even know how to articulate or speak about as gay men. And I think this is something that I'm hoping, we can shift more around as we keep evolving and growing as a community. But there's still a lot of work to do here around shame and sex in the gay community.
So what did you if you, and you don't have to go into like too many specifics, but like in your first marriage and that relationship that obviously went for most of your 20s, right? You said, and the relationship you're in now, what are some things that you were like, oh, I didn't know that about myself in the first relationship that you've changed to be better in this one?
Yeah, I mean, there's a concept called relationship differentiation that I talk a lot about in my book, and it's something that I think is super, super important that I had to learn the hard way. So relationship differentiation in a nutshell is basically like we all have our own thoughts, feelings, wishes, desires. And when we're in a relationship with somebody else, they have their own thoughts, wishes, feelings, and desires. And that tension can either, we either avoid that tension and we avoid conflict, or we have like lots of fights about it and we can't figure out a way to go through it. In my first relationship or in my marriage, I wasn't really connected to myself. I was young. I didn't really know myself well enough. I wasn't able to really clearly say, this is important to me. This is a line in the sand. And, it took, unfortunately, kind of growing through that relationship to get to the point where, and doing a lot of therapy afterwards, to get to the point where I could actually say, no, this is who I am. This is what's important to me. These are my non-negotiables. These are the things that I love and want in a partner. And so in my current relationship, we're just able to have a lot of conversations that I wasn't able to have when I was much younger. And a lot of that comes from, just the way I grew up and all that other kind of stuff that shapes who we are. But I think in our 20s, like we're not fully formed. Like the prefrontal cortex is not fully formed till we're 26. And so there's a lot still of growing and evolution that I think happens for many of us in that time period.
Well, I mean, I think for anybody, right, that like dating and relationships. I mean, most of us, if you're a millennial or older, have at least parents that were probably not self-aware or emotionally articulate or thought therapy was a thing you did and stuff. So like most of us are kind of like just shooting in the dark. And so, but the I guess the downside of, a lot of queer people is that if we come out later, we're kind of like behind on that experience of dating and learning about ourselves, which is okay, but most of that process starts when like you're in high school and you start being romantic and you start learning things about yourself. And, some of us don't get that experience. Thinking about the relationships that I did have in my 20s, like my first boyfriend, I was with him for 4 years and he was a great guy. We were, I would say, we had a lot of fun together, but like our relationship was the roots of it was partying. Like we partied all the time. That I always think back, that was like, if one of us had gone sober, the relationship wouldn't have lasted. Like it was just partying just kind of kept us together. And so like, I didn't know that then, but like looking back, I'm like, oh, okay, well, you were just like, you just found a party buddy to hang out with. And so it took another relationship after that for someone to say, hey, I don't really like how much you're partying, and being like, oh, wow, this person loves me, that they actually want to see me be healthy, instead of being like, yeah, you can just do whatever you want. And so like, I had to learn like love is, sometimes uncomfortable. And sometimes it's like, oh, wow, someone actually like showing me myself, which people weren't doing before.
Yeah. And those are those like make or break moments in relationships, right? Where can you actually take a deep breath and hear what the person is saying from a place of love versus a place of like, shame or whatever. And if you're able to have those beautiful moments together, that's how you can grow deeper and, more connected in your relationship. A lot of people sometimes use those as moments to exit a relationship, again, which is also okay. But I think if we had, I do think these are skills. These are relational skills that many of us weren't taught. And if we had these basic skills, we would have stronger relationships, and stronger relationships build stronger communities. And so I do think it's like in service of the whole gay queer community, if we could actually get better at these pretty basic relational skills, it would transform the community.
Actually, and to go into or speaking of community, like that's one of the things that I'm learning now, and even when I work with men too, I see this where there is such importance on like romantic relationships. And I think it's generally most people, but like for gay men, just talking because we work with them, that, this kind of, once I find a boyfriend, I'll be happy. Once I get that partner, that checklist off my list of things to do, then I'll be better, I'll be happy. And I know a lot of guys who are just like really depressed and unhappy and lonely because they don't have a boyfriend. And the thing that I'm learning in my life right now is that one of the reasons why I'm taking a year off of being and having a boyfriend, any type of committed relationship, is because I realized that, I tend to lose a bit of myself in relationships because I start to attach and then become, well, I'll just change who I am to make you comfortable because I don't want you to leave me. And it's easier to just like spend every weekend with you and to do all my social time with you because you're my partner, you're my boyfriend. And then but then I become like, oh, I can't lose you because you're all that I got. And so in the last 5 years, I've had 2 relationships where it was like, okay, like I lost so much of myself in it, which was not my partner's fault. It was my own issues and trauma coming up in the relationship, right? But like right now I'm like, I need community. Like I need a group of friends that are consistent, that I see or talk to at least on a regular basis, that are there for me, that know all the shit that's going on in my life. And now I'm finding that I'm like, I need that as more of the stability in my life, because I'm finding now that I'm like, oh my God, with more people in my life, there's less pressure on each individual person. And so right now I have to like build as many secure friendships as possible, because I'm like, okay, I think if I have that, maybe a relationship in the future, but I'm pretty happy right now without a boyfriend. So, but I think that there's the importance of community and showing up authentically in community is the thing that a lot of us are missing or not putting as something that's important to have in our lives.
Well, and you've done such a great work to get clear on that yourself. So many of us aren't even clear about that. We're just sort of like fumbling our way through the dark, and we're unhappy, and we're, blaming the gay community or whatever. We're putting internalized homophobia outward in some way. And I think like the idea that I'm hearing you describe is like it would be so great to have, and I'm not a sports guy, but having a whole bench full of people that you can rely on in your world, so that if one person is busy or got something else going on, you have somebody else you can tag in, somebody else that can kind of come in and get your back. And I think even if you're in a relationship, like that's why sometimes I'll ask couples, like, do you have any couple friends? Like, do you have any friends or any community outside of your relationship? Because we are not meant to just have one person satisfy every single one of our longings and needs in our life. Like that's not how we are designed as humans. We need community. And, so many of us have had, like you're describing, there's been bad situations and different gay communities or gay spaces, and it's all been focused on sex or partying or drugs. Like I hear this all the time in a lot of the people I'm talking with. But can you actually sit down and have dinner with somebody and go below the surface a little bit? Not like, where's your next vacation, or what are you doing this holiday season, but like, what brings you life right now? Like, can we have those kind of really deep, meaningful conversations? Because I long for those, and I imagine that other people do as well.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that I've learned too with like friendships and community is like, I've had this experience like lately where a guy will want to hang out with me, and like I'm up for like going to hang out and stuff too, but I know that the intention is that they're looking for a boyfriend. So as soon as I say like, oh, I'm just looking for friends, and then they'll just like completely drop me. And so I'm like, I'm aware of like, okay, I want to have friends with people that like don't want to just fuck me or think that I'm like a potential partner, but gay guy friends who like me for me that aren't going to get sex out of me or something where it's going to like be just something for them to accomplish themselves, if that makes sense. Because also I think that sometimes having friendships where you can be yourself and authentic and you can talk about stuff that you struggle with or just be real about what you're feeling on a day-to-day basis, that it's like because you're just being yourself, and the connection piece is just, I feel happy to help you and listen to you and be there for you. It's like without this feeling of, well, if I do this for you, then you got to do this for me. Or, right, which sometimes a lot of romantic relationships can kind of be like. And so there's something a bit more like, wow, I trusting someone that that they care about me because they've proven it without feeling like I need to give them something more than what I am.
I mean, it takes so long to build real deep friendships in adulthood because we're all so busy. We've all got a million things going on, and friendship takes like time and trust. And so moving like about 4 years ago, I moved from San Francisco to Denver. And it's taken a long time to really build some new deep relationships. And yeah, some of those relationships there's sex involved, some of them there's not. But like can we be clear about what we're wanting, and then can we be open to negotiating about that with somebody else? Because if we just expect that somebody is either, we're putting them in the box of a friend or a partner or something else, like can we actually like meet the person in front of us and decide what kind of connection we want with them, and can we actually talk about that? I think that's like communication level 605, and many of us are stuck at communication level 101.
So do you have a community outside of your relationship or something in your life that is for you and not for you guys as a couple?
100%. I mean, there's like probably once, twice, 3 times a week we'll do things without the other person in our relationship. And I'm very clear, like I still do theater sometimes, so I'll do that on my own. And I have lots of friends I go out to dinner with, and sometimes friends I travel with and without my partner. And I think it's really important to be able to have that. Like, I don't want to be in a relationship where it's only about that relationship. Like that isn't going to work for me at this point in my life. And, it's easier sometimes, some people may be listening to this and thinking like, oh, well, but you have the partner. And so it makes it easier. And I think it does. When you have that secure base, it is easier to go out and explore and try things and reconnect with yourself. But I think that's the main thing that so many couples struggle with. Is okay, how do we like make sure we're nurturing the we, but also having time for the I, having time to go out and explore and have your own life and your own interests and passions and things like that. And I think it's really important, not just in gay relationships, in any romantic relationship, that you don't lose yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what, the one thing though, the stability thing, like when you mentioned about having a partner and it's easier, like the thing that I had to learn, so I was in a relationship till he broke up with me in like April, and then June we decided not to speak to each other anymore because it was too hard, it was too triggering. But the thing that I had realized, because I had like kind of given up on all my own stuff for this relationship, that I was like, fuck, I'm like, I have no group of friends. I barely have like any friends. Like I have good friends, but that don't live in the city. And I was like, I'm alone. Like I went through this huge, this intense week where I was alone, and I was kind of having like, I know a bit of it was mixed with, like my childhood trauma, being alone and feeling abandoned, but also it was kind of like, oh my God, this is feeling so painful because I actually know that I'm alone. And I did that for a week. And then I realized I'm okay. Like, I'm okay. I just got through a week of doing this where I was so overwhelmed that at one point I was like, do I go to the hospital? Like, my nervous system won't calm down. But then after a week, I'll like never forget the moment where I just realized that I was like, I've been doing this for a week and I'm okay. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to, like, nothing bad is going to happen. And I was watching Couples Therapy. Do you know that show?
I do.
And I was like, because one of the reasons why I struggle with like connection is because I think I'm pretty intense, or like, so I was watching Couples Therapy and I was like, I fucking love this show. I cry with them. I think it's so fascinating. I think Dr. Orna is just this like anchor of a person that does it so well, her job. And I was like, I know that a lot of people would not want to be like, hey, do you want to watch Couples Therapy and like watch all this intense stuff? And so I was like, I'm okay by myself, actually, because I would rather be by myself doing the things that I like over being with someone and then changing who I am, or like drinking and doing drugs to like fit into the situation and feel comfortable. And so I was like, I'm actually okay alone. because I'd rather be able to be comfortable with what I'm feeling by myself. And I don't want to go step out into other groups and stuff where I have to like completely change everything about what I'm feeling or not be real. And so it just like my body just in that moment learned that I was okay. So like when you talk about like the partner being, and obviously having a partner that you love and feel safe with would be make things easier. But it really taught me that I was like, even if everyone abandons me again, I'll be okay. And I
Uh-huh.
know that's like that's worst case scenario, but I was like, I've done this before. I can do it again. It doesn't mean that it'll hurt, but I won't go into this like, oh my God, I'm alone and I'm going to be alone forever. And this is the way that life is going to be. I just realized I was like, worst case scenario, being alone, I can handle that and like dig myself out of that, which I did. And so I think sometimes, right, you got to be your own person that you know that you can be with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's what you're, well, first of all, I'm really sorry that happened. That it's awful to kind of go through a week like that where your nervous system is like going haywire.
I will say honestly, I am so grateful. I have not seen the ex-boyfriend. I mean, I've bumped into him once, but I'm like, I'm so grateful to him. I'm so grateful for him for breaking up with me. I'm so grateful for that week because like I didn't think that was gonna happen, but my life is completely different. Like I quit drinking and I was like, wow, I think something actually healed in me. So I'm actually really
Mm,
grateful that it happened. Because I wouldn't know that, oh yeah, you can actually be alone. You're okay. You can take care
yeah.
of yourself. You'll be okay. So
Yeah.
it was a gift.
And that was for me right after I got divorced. It was the first time in my adult life that I'd ever lived alone. And it was tricky. I had similar experiences where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be okay. But just like you're describing, once you have that experience where you're like, I'm going to be okay. No matter what happens, I can trust myself. I mean, it is so liberating. And I think that is like one of the huge steps forward that moves us on our journey towards healing. From that place, then you can actually have a relationship with somebody where you don't have to disappear into them, where you can hold
Mm-hmm.
on to who you are and not lose, those aspects of who you are. Because if you lose those aspects of yourself, then that's when the relationship starts feeling stale or toxic, or you start getting resentful, or it's just not a sustainable place to be, I don't think.
Like when you say that you had never been alone after your divorce, was a part of your need for being in a relationship just to make sure you had someone around then?
I think on some level, yes. I mean, I had just because I had lived in expensive places, I had always had a roommate, or I had always had, I'd lived with multiple roommates, or I was on tour or something. So I really never had been living in a space that was my own. And, after like several months of being in a space where there's nobody else there, it's, you get to decorate it the way that you want. You have to take care of it all by yourself. You can have whoever you want over. There's a lot of freedom that comes with that, but there's also a lot of responsibility. But it was in that process that I was able to actually connect and say, yeah, I'm going to survive on my own. If we connect this back to childhood, for many of us that had some form of trauma or abandonment stuff that we lived through early on, as children, we didn't learn that we could be okay, right? Like we were either abandoned and felt like we weren't going to survive. And that's what children, like that's a child's brain is not an adult's brain. We're not able to reason our way through that. We internalize it, most of us, and we take it personally because we can't blame our caregiver because they're our everything. They're actually surviving, without them we won't survive. So many of us internalize that in one way or another, and we think we're wrong or we're bad or we have to change to stay in relationship with somebody, and that stuff takes a while to work through.
Mm-hmm. So when you were alone, that like what came up? You're just uncomfortable and anxious the whole
Ugh.
time you're by yourself, and just did you like numb yourself out by like maybe going out doing other things or just avoiding being alone?
I certainly numbed myself out. I certainly got super busy. It wasn't actually until the pandemic when I realized, wow, I was going out and doing something, not going out and partying, but going out and having dinner or seeing a show or whatever, 6 nights out of the week. And when the pandemic came and all that screeched to a halt, it was like, oh, I have to sit with myself and figure out, what do I actually like? What actually is something that is sustainable for me when you can't go out and distract yourself with a million different things. I'm still somebody who just likes to be busy and do things, but certainly developing like a meditation practice and my own healing work through psychedelic therapy has been super helpful about being actually able to be with myself more. And I'm not at all claiming that I'm done. I think healing is a lifelong journey. But, like you said, I found a way to kind of be with myself, and I've figured out, okay, I actually like this person that I am.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing that I felt was like I I actually really like myself now, and I'm like at this point of like, I'm really proud of everything that I'm doing. And, um, yeah, I think it's just I like for myself, it was just like my stuff of growing up where because I was really alone when I was, especially a couple years when I was in high school and like getting bullied and stuff. And so I know that's like where my fear of being alone, but I was like even with friendships and community, I think there was like a part of me that just wanted to fit in. But it's so funny because I was like, there was times when I was actively like aware that I was like, okay, well, I'll try to just be like these people and like just party hard with them or whatever and just, talk the way they do or whatever and all this stuff. And I would always try to like, because I just wanted to have a group of friends and I would always try to like, I just wanted to fit in. I was like, I just want this group of friends. And I always felt like somehow I was always on the outside and was never really fully accepted. And so the other thing about like being alone, when I had this breakup, I just thought, fuck, like I'm alone and I'm doing all this shit anyways. Like I might as well be myself because like I am alone. Like I might as well just start being myself and like just doing the things that I like because trying to fit in isn't working either. So like, and it's really funny because now that I'm trying this and I'm doing other things, like I try to meet new people and I do this running group and I'm trying to like, consciously meet as many people as I can and see go on hangouts and see if there's a connection there and stuff. So I'm doing a lot of stuff, but I think it's because I was like, well, when I tried to change myself to have friends, that didn't work. So like I might as well just be myself. And then as I noticed that some people like, I'm not for them, it's like, oh, it's okay because if I change myself, it still wouldn't have worked out. So I might as well just be myself and like just let the people naturally come in that do want to be with me.
Well, I'm forgetting who said the quote, but like, be yourself, everybody else is taken, right? And
Yeah.
it's true. Like, so nobody else can be who you are. And if you lose who you are, it's going to be impossible to connect with people anyway, because you're not actually showing up as a full human being. You're playing a role. And so many of us as gay men, we've been conditioned to play roles since before we could even speak. And so, it's not. And then you mix that in with some good old trauma and you've got a recipe for abandoning yourself. And that is like, if gay men, if we could just kind of continue to work on this as a community, not abandoning ourselves and not feeling like we have to abandon ourselves in order to fit into a community, like we would be so much better for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, don't you notice too that like, and like, I know that I used to be this way too, especially when I was coming from like a place of insecurity, but I think gay men also can be very competitive with each other because there's times where I'm like, it's funny, I'll tell you this quick story, but there was one time this past summer where there was a couple guys that, well, I knew these two guys. I was sitting in the park and these two other guys that I knew came and sat down with like, there was another guy with them that I didn't know. And so I was like, hey, I'll go over and say hi. So I go over and say hi. And I was like, oh, can I join you guys? And so I did. And then, but as soon as I said that, the one guy that I didn't know, I was like, he seems pissed. And so I was like, I was thinking in my head, I was like, oh, maybe this is like some sort of like, he didn't want anyone joining because they're having some sort of special, he'd rather just be them. Like I was trying to go through my head, but I was like, I can't just leave now because they said yes. So I was like, I'm not sure even if this guy's mad at me. But I was like, I'll just be super nice to him. So it was like just being like overly nice and like talking to him a lot to try to be like, okay, I'll just show him that I'm really nice. And then a little while later, he said to me, we were listening to Madonna and I love Madonna. So we were talking about that. And he's like, you're really cool. He's like, I did not like you when you sat down. And I was like, I know you didn't. I was like, I could tell. And he's like, don't worry, it's my stuff. But what made me realize is that I was like, this guy did not know me at all. And just me, for whatever reason, me showing up without any knowledge of who I am, he automatically didn't like me and was triggered by me. And I was like, okay, I have no control over the way that I present myself because like I'm going to trigger people no matter what. Like I can't be like tiptoeing around people and making sure that I make sure everyone feels comfortable because there's going to be people that like don't like you for their own shit that has nothing to do with you, that is just pointless to try to change yourself to fit in, right? And so I think there's like even for myself, like especially when I was younger, I would look at other guys who were doing better than me in life or making more money, being more successful, being more fit, being more hot, being more whatever. And there'd be initial like, I want to judge you. I want to like somehow take you down because like then won't make me feel so much shame about myself. So like I've had to actively practice like if that judgment comes up when I don't know anything to be like, I don't know this person. I need to get curious and go talk to them and hang out with them. But I think as gay men, sometimes that we're not really good with like the diversity of being able to be like, I do this and I do this differently. Or, we don't have to talk about like how much money we're making or how many trips we've gone on. We can actually just talk about like our feelings or like something hard that like we're not competing with each other. Do you know what I mean? But I think that there is this like natural, maybe that's part masculinity in general, to just be like driven and competitive. And sometimes when gays are like that driven to be successful, perfectionism and all that shame stuff, that we just naturally are like, I don't like you because you make me feel bad about myself, instead of being like, well, maybe I should get to know them. Does that make sense?
100%. And even in your story right there, right? Like we're so conditioned to be other focused, to be like, okay, does this person like me? What do they do? What can I do to make them like me? That we often skip the first step, which is, do I want to sit down with these people? Like, do I want to sit by myself? Or do I want to sit with two of them? Do I like two of them? Like we abandon what we actually like or what our experience is because we're trying to fit in. And this is, again, I think been programmed into us from such a young age for many of us, because we have been bullied. We have felt othered. We haven't seen windows and mirrors of like other queer folks that we could look up to or be like. And so we have had to abandon ourselves. And, if we can just start getting into the practice of, okay, what am I thinking or feeling right now? What do I want? And that is so hard for so many of us to do.
Yeah. Well, I would say too that even just the thing of talking about expressing yourself of how you're actually feeling and being authentic, it's like, I always say there's like, I think that's a man issue where men just don't do that with each other to like go deeper and talk about feelings and stuff. I always say this thing that like gay men and straight men aren't really that much different, because like straight men will like all get together and watch football and have drinks and just watch football, and gay men will just change it to Drag Race, like do the exact same thing and have the same like superficial conversations. Yeah, and then a lot of times too, just finding people that like groups will tend to like look the same and act the same, and everyone is kind of at the same position in life, or like sometimes it can just be physical appearance is all the same, right? And so it's like there is like an unconscious hey, you make us feel safe, or you have something to add to the group that isn't just about like, hey, I like you, you're a nice person and you're enjoyable to be around.
Well, boys are often socialized, right, to stand next to each other, to watch sports, to watch things, not to look in each other's eyes. Whereas girls are taught to like play jump rope and patty cake and actually connect face to face. And so I think that programming sticks with us all the way through to adulthood for many of us, whether you're straight or gay.
Do you have to actively be searching for more friends right now with your partner, or do you feel pretty stable with all the people in your life?
Yeah, I mean, we're very different. Like I am an extrovert. I love to connect with people. I like to have lots of friends. I like to have really deep conversations with people. I mean, no wonder I'm a therapist, right? So So I have lots of different friends, and he is more introverted. And so he's totally fine, like spending a night at home, watching a show, doing some woodworking or whatever. And I need to go out more. I want to go out more. And so again, that's a difference that we've learned to negotiate over the years. We certainly have like couple friends and friends that we go on trips with, and, a community of people, and they don't all live here in Denver. Some of them are still back in the Bay Area. I'm somebody who kind of collects friends. So I have still friends from, when I was 16, and, I love kind of nurturing relationships and keeping people in my life that I've been with for years and years and years, because then you get to know them as they grow up and evolve, and vice versa. And so I've always been somebody who just likes having lots of friends and relationships and connections. But, I think you don't have to be, I just want to really emphasize this, you don't have to be partnered to be happy. And there's so many people who don't want to be in a relationship with one person, or they want to be in a polyamorous relationship with multiple people, or they're more demisexual and they do need that connection before sex. Like there's all different kinds of ways to connect. And I think it really starts with you getting clear on what is important to you and what kind of relationship you want to be in. Just like you've been talking about, you've been kind of going through this self-discovery process the last several months of like, okay, who do I want to be in relationship with other people? What kind of relationships do I want? And I think this is a lifelong process. This is something we have to keep coming back to, and we're going to evolve and change through the different phases of life. And, who you are at 30 is going to be probably very different than who you are at 50 or 60, hopefully. I mean, hopefully we keep evolving and growing and and becoming more of who we are.
It's also like the unpredictability of the relationships that we have, right? Like things change. And so, like, relying on just your partner, even if it's just like a group of friends, like that changes as well. Like, even now, I'm recognizing that, even the reason why I made the decision not to have a boyfriend is when I did my training for the somatic work, my teacher had actually said, like, she was around 50, I think, at the time when she told us this, but she said she was married twice when she was younger. And she was like, I was a total bitch in my relationships because she had all this abandonment issues. And she's like, now I just date like 3 to 4 different guys at once. And when one
Mhm.
of them leaves, it's not such a big deal because I got like 2 or 3 more. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, that kind of seems like that would work for me. And
Yep.
she would say, like, I've never been happier. So even in this moment that I've been trying this, and the last, like, I'm at a really good place in my life. And it's
Mhm.
also the fact that I'm not drinking right now is like a testament to that, because I'm like, I'm not drinking. I'm happy and I'm not drinking, which is, this only happens a few times in my life. And the last time it happened in my life was 2019. And again, at that time, I was single, but I had a really good friend that I had a really meaningful relationship with. And so I think that this, for now, right now in my life, this works really well. But I think that when guys are unhappy because they don't have a partner, or like what you already said, if you're depressed that you don't have a partner, and some guys I see like looking for a partner for years. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, I think you need to find some acceptance of what is, and maybe deepen the relationships with your friends if you have them, or try to deepen the relationships with the people that you do have in your life if you do have them. Because I've learned that I'm like, I just need the intimacy. It has nothing to do with like if I have a husband, a boyfriend, or whatever. It's I need the intimacy. And in the moments that I'm with a friend, and I don't know, we're talking about meaningful stuff, and like the friend in 2019, we got sober together, so we did group therapy every week together, and I was like, this is a meaningful, wonderful relationship that I have, that is a friend, that is not sexual at all, and this is enough. Like, I'm like, if I just have this with people, whatever that relationship looks like, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay
Mhm.
with this. Because as I've learned, like, you can get into a relationship with that person, can break up with you a year and a half later. People can die. Their life can go a different way. That you kind of have to continuously be like, okay, do I have this large circle of people or enough people in my life that someone can fall out, even if it's my partner, and I will be okay? And making sure. And for myself, saying this now is like, because I'm working on it with the friendship and having many people, there's something that has changed in my nervous system where, my friend that I hung out with on the weekend, if I don't see him next weekend, it'll be fine because I'm actually hanging out with another friend. And so I'm like, before it would be like with this one person, if I didn't see them the next week, I would be like, oh, well, they don't like me. They must not want to hang out with me. And now it's like, well, actually, my time is more spread out. And so I'm not thinking about that person from last week that I didn't see them this week, because I'm like trying to spend time with other people, and we're still texting and talking, and I go to my run group and I see these people. And so I'm like, there just feels like this, I can let out a breath, because I knew before that my nervous system was just like, you're going to be alone. You're going to be alone. And all it was doing was making sure that I had people around, whether they were good or bad for me.
Mhm.
And so now I'm like it was funny, even on Saturday, I went out and because I'm not drinking, and I was like, I'm so tired. I could just not go out. But I was like, wow, look how blessed you are that you're actually like, I wish I didn't have to go out tonight because I'm tired, but I should go out because I'm going out with Ashley, and he already said I was. So I was like, wow, how blessed you are that you have that option. And before I was like, I don't have anybody. So like the only option is alone. And so there's something that's just like shifted physically with me, knowing that I have more people in my life.
Yeah, and I think, there's like no right relationship structure. There's only
Mm,
what works for you. And what works for you right now might not work for you in 6 months or a year or 2 years. But you certainly don't need like this myth that one relationship is going to make you happy and solve everything and fill, that is the romantic comedy bullshit that we have been sold
mhm.
since the beginning of time, right? That like you can be in a relationship with someone and you can change them. And I mean, I love musicals, and every musical, those old fashioned musicals are about like Hello Dolly. She meets the guy and she changes him and he opens up and softens up. And like that is not what we need to be looking for in romantic relationships. We can't
Mhm.
expect that somebody is going to change because we've magically met them and, we're going to open their hearts or whatever. Like that is a pathway to lots of unhappiness. Like you have to be
Mhm.
able to be firm enough in who you are and date someone who is firm enough in who they are if you're going to date somebody, that you don't blend together.
Mhm.
You share things that you love with each other, but your boundaries are not so porous that you're letting, yourself blend completely with another human.
What do you think, in your opinion, just from like your work and maybe your own past experiences, but what do you think the reason why a lot of gay men, why a relationship won't go past maybe just a few months or a year, or like why is it so hard, do you think, like for gay men to enter into a long-term committed relationship, monogamous or not monogamous, whatever it is, but just more long-term?
It's probably there's probably a few different factors, and it's probably very individualized to like who we're talking about here. But if you have learned to put up your walls and not let things down, right, it's going to be difficult to go deeper. If you are really kind of stuck in your ways and you're not willing to compromise, it's going to be very difficult to have a relationship. Like, negotiation takes two people being able to actually give something up. If you're not willing to give something up, you can't actually find the common ground in the middle. I think there's a lot of substance use in our community. There's a lot, we know the statistics are still higher than average, which is really, disheartening. But if you're constantly using a substance, you're not actually in your system either, right? You're not actually in your body. And so it's difficult to actually connect with somebody. There's so much trauma around, I think, being gay and queer still. I mean, I think we've made a lot of progress, but I think growing up in that way, it's not like you magically become an adult and all the experiences you had before the age of 18 disappear, right? If your formative experiences in your second queer adolescence are not vulnerable, open, connected ways to connect with another man, it's going to make it that much harder for you as you continue to age and grow up. And there's also just not that many of us. Like, if we look at just the statistics, I think 4% uh, of of people out there in the United States Census were identified as LGBTQ. That's a pretty small percentage. Yes, it's growing with younger generations, but that's usually more in the queer kind of area, not necessarily in the gay male identified world. And so there's not as many of us out there. If you live in a rural area, it's really hard to meet people and find connections. Like, I think there's so many different things in the mix here, but I don't think we can like take lightly the fact that we've been socialized male. And I think there's not just an epidemic of gay loneliness, there's an epidemic of male loneliness that people are talking about, across the board here.
Yeah, actually, what I always like, even I don't know if you understand or if you know about a bit about like what my work looks like, but like mine is an experiential practice, right? So like, I even say, even just as a therapist, you have a relationship with a client that just has
Of
certain
course.
boundaries, right? And so it's the same with me, but my boundaries are probably a lot more open because I can use touch.
Mhm.
And so I build emotional and romantic relationships with these men, and to try to help them to see stuff in themselves that come up, but also just get the experience of. I work with a lot of guys who have never been with other men or never been in a relationship, and so it's just a safer place to come and experience that. But I say to guys all the time that I'm like, especially if these guys that are feeling really lonely and are not getting intimacy, and it's, they're waiting for a boyfriend to come along, then I'm like, oh my God, even use sex workers, other people that do, like sexological body workers, somatic workers that do this kind of stuff, let me can have those open boundaries, or just even an escort that you connect with and you can have a relationship with. Because if you know that you can at least have your needs met, because as like what you just said, it is so hard for us with all the stuff that comes into it to have that relationship, that if you're just needing touch and connection, you can, if you have the resources and the money to do so, use a sex worker to be able to still have that, so that you're not completely depleted of intimacy and kind of in this scarcity desperation for a relationship, where you can be like, okay, if I need this, I can actually get this myself and feel safe about it with someone that is a sex worker. Because even, I'm like, for myself, it's like I'm a trained sex worker, basically. I'm a sex worker that has all these tools to be able to help you like learn and grow. But a lot of other sex workers just have a lot of capacity for people. And so there's like, as I said at the beginning of this podcast, that, I started out as an escort, and I was like, they just wanted to talk and be with someone. And so that is what they're there for. And so I think there's a lot of, because I've told guys this and my friends too, and there's still a lot of stigma about like going to use a sex worker, that like I shouldn't have to pay for sex, or I'll never pay for sex. And I'm like, but you're not getting any. And you're complaining about not getting any. Why don't you go use a sex worker? And I think it's just being able to like find the ways, or find the power in yourself to be able to have the things that you need. Like, even
Yeah.
like for myself right now, like I'm looking for sex and intimacy with men, but not a boyfriend. So I understand that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. But it also, and I'm kind of more of a demisexual where I need a bit of connection. And so it hasn't been the easiest thing just to find casual sex for me. But I'm like, okay, I still have to find it and want it. And I mean, my job is pretty sexual that I feel like I, I get it out in a lot of different ways that I'm okay. But I'm like, if I did need it, I know how I can be able to find these things, or I could even pay for a sex worker or do whatever, that if I need to have sex, at least for like some self-care almost.
I have clients who will say the same thing about therapy, like, oh gosh, do I have to pay for a friend? And what I always say to that is like, therapy isn't, I'm not a friend, right? Like we have skills, whether you're a sexual surrogate or a sexological body worker or whatever, like you have skills, you have training, you have experience, and these things are muscles. And so you can develop the muscle to be able to be in relationship with people by practicing, but you can't practice on your own. And so I love what you're saying there. And it's like, yeah, you don't have to be alone unless I do know that there's financial resources and, all sorts of stuff that goes into the mix there. There's cultural stuff. There's all sorts of stuff that may make someone less likely to want to hire a sexual surrogate or something like that. But one of the most beautiful things that I actually saw at a sex therapy conference recently was it was a really beautiful presentation between a sexual surrogate, a sex therapist, and a woman, a person who I think she was 70 and she had never had sex before. And so her treatment team kind of worked together, and it was really beautiful for her to have an experience where she could actually be in her body and feel pleasure. She wanted that for herself and she was able to do that. So yeah, I think if you get clear on what you want, there's lots of avenues, but you have to first start with yourself. What is it you're desiring? What are you longing for? What are you wanting? And stop projecting it outward and saying, oh, the whole gay community is terrible, or gay men only want sex, or whatever. If you're putting all your energy outward on what you're not getting, you're not actually connecting with what you are wanting. And that, I think, is the real tragedy of trauma. It prevents you from connecting with yourself and what's important to you.
Yeah. And I think too, because I work with a lot of gay men too, right? Like I said, that haven't been in relationships or haven't even had sex and that are older. But then there's a lot of grief, I think, that comes up from that of not feeling like they got to experience what, younger generations have experienced. And I always say, like, it's okay to feel that grief and like I can be here for you and, hold you in this. But I think also the thing to understand is that you can have great sex now, or great connection, I should say, whatever that intimacy is that you're looking for now. Like, I think there's so much about like the fantasy too that guys will be like, well, I'm waiting for the perfect guy that like is 6 feet tall and makes this amount of money and is handsome and everyone else is not going to be good enough. And it's like, you're waiting for this fantasy that doesn't exist, or even you might find that fantasy and you're like, wow, this doesn't feel as good as I thought it would. And there's like just this idea of like real authentic intimacy and connection, the way it should feel, which is like, to feel safe, to be yourself and be seen, is a really beautiful feeling. And that might not look like the fantasy of what you want, or if you're the person that has never had sex and you're 7 years old and you're grieving over it, you can still have that like intense, deep connection now if you put effort into it.
There are options out there, right? There are ways that you can find connection, and you don't have to live a celibate life if that's not what you want.
Yeah. And it's just what we were saying about like, if you don't have a partner and like you can still have your needs met. The thing about the community aspect, or even just the intimacy that I have with men now, what I notice about it is different is that I think before, when I was still struggling with the like, I need a man because I don't want to be alone, is that I would be with let's say if I go on like a date or hang out with a guy and we're having like a really good time, my mind would start to go into like, well, maybe he's going to be my boyfriend. And then it would be like the fantasy was starting to build up in my mind. And because now I'm like, I just need the need met, which right now is like, I need connection. I need to be heard. I want to have sex or whatever it is. That when I'm in that moment with the guy, I notice that I'm like so much more present and so much more like able to just enjoy the moment because the fantasy isn't building up in my head. I'm just like, wow, I really like hanging out with you. Wow, you're really nice to talk to. This is a really great conversation. And I can leave and be able to be like, oh, I don't need to like pursue it more or like chase it. I can just be like, that was really nice. I hope to see him again. But if that doesn't happen, that's fine too. That was just a really nice moment. And so I'm able to just be more present with just realizing that I was like, my need is being met, and that's what matters the most with this person.
Yeah, you're embodied, you're connected to yourself, you're mindful, you're present. And I think those are like qualities that I hear so many people, and myself included, I want to be more of those things. And
Hmm.
so how can we be more of those things? And I think part of that is like when your anxious mind starts going down that rabbit hole, which it will for many of us, like slowing it down and bringing it back to, okay, I'm here, I'm present. What does this guy look like? What am I feeling in my body right now? Like all those things that can bring you back to the present moment, whether it's sex or a date or a friendship, like all those things are really important to being able to actually be present. And if you're not present, you can't build a connection, any kind of connection.
Hmm. And also, I'm sure you know this from being in a relationship that it's not always like everything is great in your life. I'm sure that, right? I'm sure just because you have a partner doesn't mean that everything else becomes easier. And I'm sure that you guys probably still at some points don't want to hang out with each other, see each other. And so all that happens too, right? So it's not
Of
like having a
course.
partner is the answer for it all.
No, and like I think it was Carrie Bradshaw said, right? You can either have an apartment, a relationship, or a really good job, but you can't have all three at the same time. And so, you know, really getting clear that yeah, there's always going to be work in your life, and there's moments when I think that's why for myself, when I notice I'm feeling annoyed or whatever, I check in with myself, and really maybe what I'm thinking is, oh, I want some space, or I want to do something a little bit different tonight, instead of like again focusing outward on I'm annoyed at my partner right now. Like, okay, what am I actually missing that I'm craving, and why can't I ask for it? Why can't I actually
Mm.
try to do that? I am not a victim in my life. I have agency. And, being in a relationship doesn't change that.
Hmm. Do you find it still hard sometimes to ask your partner for what you need?
Not as much. I mean, it certainly was at the beginning. It took a lot of practice. And I had a lot of years of other relationships where when I would try to, it was so difficult for me to ask for what I wanted. And when I would do that, it would be met in really negative ways. And so in this relationship, that doesn't happen. And if it does happen, then we talk about it. But it's
Hmm.
again, it's taken years. It's not something that's happened overnight. It's still a commitment to myself that if I realize I want something, I'm going to try to be able to articulate it. And that's a commitment I'm making to myself.
Yeah, no, every time there's those opportunities where, or when you're triggered in a relationship and stuff, right? Those are always the moments to go a bit deeper. I think that's how,
Hmm.
like, when we talk about this, about like letting down the walls and going a bit deeper, it's like, it's not about like trauma dumping on on a
Mm-mm.
first date or like just randomly like, hey, here's all my shit, can you handle it? It's always like the moments like for me it's like because I do have stuff with like abandonment and with friends that I'm like, are they showing up for me? And if they don't show up for me, instead of me going into, well, they don't like me, and I'm like, okay, now I have to say though, hey, by the way, when you whatever didn't show up for me in whatever way, that just hurt my feelings. And I just like, I don't know, you probably didn't even know it. Like for me, I'm like, oh, that's how I go deeper, is like they have to know in this moment that this is something that triggers me, and they'll understand me more while I still take responsibility for that these are my feelings. But those are always the opportunities to like kind of test, can you handle this going a little bit deeper? And
Hmm.
sometimes people can't, right? Or sometimes people mess up, and that's okay too. It's not about like people needing to be perfect, but I think just for myself, I'm learning I need people to at least try.
Yep.
Like, I've had so many guys just shut down, not want to speak to me, like completely block me just because I've been like, hey, by the way, that thing you did hurt my feelings. So I'm like, I don't have time for that. And I understand it's nothing personal, but it's like, I need you to like at least be able to handle a little bit of depth, because that's just who I am.
When people show you who they are, believe them, right? And
Yeah.
so, oftentimes when clients or when I have those experiences myself, I'm like, you learned a really important, valuable bit of information there without having to go months into the relationship. If someone's going to block
Hmm.
you because you told them you hurt their feelings, they are probably not in a space where they're the right person to be in a relationship with.
Hmm. Yeah. I have one more question for you. What are you most
Sure.
excited for in your life right now?
I am most excited for a little bit more work-life balance. So the last year has been really a lot of focus on work, and so I wrote this book that came out last year, and so I've been talking about it a lot and doing a lot of trainings and teaching and all that kind of stuff. And I now want to kind of bring back in some more balance so that I can have some more fun and levity in the life aspect of my life. And so I would love to
Hmm.
do some more theater and have some more
Hmm.
creative outlets. And I'm doing, I signed up for an Artist's Way workshop that I'm doing
Hmm.
with a friend and colleague that's going to start in January, so I can reconnect with some of that creativity and that life force that I've been putting on the back burner for a little while.
Mm-hmm. All right, can I ask you, are you like a hard-driven work person?
I can be. I certainly can be. I learned it from my parents, and I don't want to be though. So I certainly have a little bit of ambition and a good work ethic, but my life work right now is just trying to find that balance to do good work and support a lot of people, but also make sure I'm supporting myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I'm like trying to learn that too, of being able to because I realized the part of the working hard thing was like to get people like me. I think that was
Mm.
part of it. And again, when I realized I was like, I'm alone, people don't even like me, I was like, I just need to do more, like I need to put myself first. So I think that's what I'm learning too, is like finding more joy. And even I'm taking like in the next year of everything, not having a boyfriend, I was like, I want to actually do more things that just bring me joy for no other reason than bringing me joy. Like, I think I
Uh-huh.
was really like, I'm doing this because it'll make my work better. It'll make me more money, or like, which I needed to happen. But I was like, I was not enjoying the work anymore because there was so much pressure on it. And I was like, I need to start doing a lot more things in my life that are just for me.
Well, I really love that you're having these conversations. I've listened to several of the ones that you put out there, and I think
Oh,
it's
yeah.
really important that we have some really, you're practicing what you preach, and you're having more vulnerable, real conversations with other people who are in the healing world. And I just really am glad that you're doing that. And thank you for your contribution.
Oh, well, thank you for yours too. And I'll say to that too, that the vulnerable piece about being yourself, to advice to men, is that I will say that like I make porn, and for me putting that out there is a lot less scary than sometimes this podcast and being vulnerable and talking about my feelings. And it just shows me how much of like, as a man, how easy it is to be like hypersexual, which is like especially as a gay man, and to be like, that's just a very masculine thing of whatever, hypersexuality, all that stuff, that I was like, it's so much easier for that than for me to just talk about my feelings. But that was the piece that I was like, that's the part of myself that I wasn't being. But I think for men, that, because when I see guys too that stay in that perfectionism of masculinity, I think that like, you don't have to like give up your masculinity, but you can be both. You need to find a little bit of vulnerability and emotions and feeling your feelings, and a bit of softness, and you can be both. And I think that's the thing that I'm learning, is that like, is if I am more of a full person, it's more people are starting to see me, and maybe they only see the one side of me and they like don't really get the other side. But I'm starting to be like, okay, you're actually bringing more people in by being this full version instead of staying on this one thing that was safe.
100%. And you're modeling really good behavior for everybody else, right? Yeah, it's so many of us compartmentalize sex as this thing over here and masculinity as this thing over here, but it is so much a part of who we are. And so if we can kind of blend it all together, I think that's where the real magic happens.
Well, thanks for coming on this and talking to me. It was a really great
Thanks for
conversation.
having me. Yeah.